Hello, beautiful light-filled souls. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video series. This particular interview is what I'm really excited about. It was in the portal from last year's summit, but I want to make it available to everyone on YouTube. And please, if you haven't checked out my spiritual community, I absolutely love communing and meditating with people, giving group readings on occasion, and really connecting with you. So that's an option if you don't want a reading or you don't want to connect with me individually. I just love community. Also, I support writers on their journey because I am a creative writing professor and I like to give tips about writing and connect other writers. So check out that link as well. This new video series is about how to live life more fully in beautiful, easy ways. And I think healing from codependency allows for a life of greater ease. So I'd like to share this interview with Lisa A. Romano. If you are not familiar with Lisa A. Romano, please go check out her YouTube channel now. She's fabulous with tons of meditations and just a plethora of information about any type of narcissistic abuse that you may have suffered in your life and how to reconnect with that light. She's also a near-death experiencer, but we're focusing more on her work in this particular interview. She's an expert in the field of codependency and narcissistic abuse recovery. She's a best-selling author, speaker, and has a very popular YouTube channel, as I mentioned. She was voted the most #1 influential person of 2020 by Digital Journal. Lisa runs a coaching program and really connects people who are healing from codependency. And it really makes for breakthroughs in people's lives who may have had traditional therapy for many years and simply needed that extra bump and that connection to others. So I'm so excited to talk with Lisa. Here is that interview. My first question is, a lot of my people who follow me are interested in near-death experiences and spiritual awakenings. And yet I also talk about being an abuse survivor. I had a narcissistic mom and of course some narcissistic relationships along the way as it happens, even after a grand awakening, because I was young. I was a young woman when this happened. So some of my followers have experienced the same thing. And what do you say to people who've had this moment where they felt that love of God, their consciousness opened up, and they just want to come back and love everyone, but then they run into abuse?
Yeah, I think that it's very important that, and I too have had a near-death experience myself, but I also think it's really important that those of us who have this experience and we feel so open up to universal love, like we get it, like we shouldn't be fighting, we should just be loving one another. But we forget that not everybody else has had that awakening. And we forget that when it comes to narcissism, by definition, they do not change. They're stuck in the 3D world. You have had the near-death experience, so you've been liberated while in body, and now you know that there is something more than just this 3D reality. And then you come back, you take this beautiful awakening and you bring it back to this 3D body that you have with the same mindset that you have. And you think, oh, the answer is so simple. All I have to do is love other people. And I think it's a very simplistic, nice way to view the world, but not very realistic. If you think that you're going to be able to love a narcissist enough to make them change, that's a fantasy. Because what a narcissist does is they see somebody who's highly empathic, and that becomes a source of narcissistic supply.
When this is taken to like a deeper level in organizations, so spiritual organizations, you can see that sometimes people are gaslit if a narcissist attacks them within a spiritual community and you say, hey, I'm being attacked by a narcissist. And people say, oh, we've got to love everyone, keep giving them power. What do you say to that?
Knowledge is very powerful. So if you understand what narcissism is, and you understand that a narcissist will seek narcissistic supply in the form of admiration, praise, fear, empathy, or sympathy, because it's a power over. And I think that the self-help community can do a much better job at helping victims of narcissists feel validated and empowered with the ability to have the right to say, this is how this experience made me feel. rather than jumping right into, we have to forgive everybody. Just the word forgiveness. I'm giving you something, but I don't own it yet. So what am I forgiving? The pain, what you said, what you did, the experience, all of the pain that it caused me, all the trauma that it caused me. But if you're invalidating that trauma, how am I supposed to forgive anything? I haven't even been allowed to validate it yet. And that's what it is with invisible wounds. And that's why there are so many people like me and yourself trying to give victims of these invisible wounds a voice to feel heard. This really does happen. When you get a black and blue, everyone goes, oh, you poor thing, because I can see it. How narcissistic is that? So I can see your wound, therefore it's valid. But I can't see your wound, therefore it's invalid. That is a complete lack of empathy. Now, it gets very complicated. That's why I think logic and reason is so important.
This makes me wonder, do you make meditations to help people get out of those high emotions and into more logic? Because that's what the brain needs in order to open to that divinity, is to calm down a little and realize, like, oh, hey, I do have that link to universal love. This situation is a little crazy in front of me. I need to tune into that divinity.
Well, I think that what's different about the kind of meditations that I do is I believe that we have to get to the emotional pain first. So my meditations are designed to help people get in touch with that inner child that's been voiceless, that's been invalidated. So we have to validate the emotions in order for us to be able to logically deal with why we were that emotional in the first place. So I don't spiritually bypass. Yeah, my meditations rip the Band-Aid off. It's true. You're going to, oh my God, I do feel that. Yeah, but let it come up, let it come up, let it come up, let it come up. Let it come up. It's okay. It's okay. So I teach people how to stay in their body while they're actually mentally and emotionally, cognitively and spiritually validating this pain rather than running from it, because that's what the brain's designed to do.
I love that. That makes so much sense. And sometimes when you haven't been seen, that's a wound that's very hard to process. It can take so long. I remember the first time I was in therapy and a therapist said, I don't like your mom. And I was like, oh, she's been through so much. Oh my God, that woman, I've got to take care of her. Like all of my whole life was centered around her needs, her emotions. Like that's how she trained me to be. And for someone to say that she wasn't a good mom just like blew my mind open. But it took many many years to get to this point of saying, oh, I was never seen.
Right.
I was never there.
And sometimes it's just like, it feels like such a smoking gun, and, once we give ourselves permission to accept that our parents weren't perfect, right? They weren't perfect. My mother's mother was an alcoholic. Her father was an alcoholic. He beat my grandmother, right? I mean, my mother's life was horrible. That's valid, but that trauma impacted me. So I just need to find an ability or give myself the right to sit in that space, not invalidate my inner child's experience. Just for a moment, hold a space for my inner child so I can process mentally, logically, and rationally why I felt so invisible. Why was I so reactive? Why was I so codependent? Why did I acquiesce? Why did I think that love was conditional? Why? Gaining the knowledge, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, that was me. Suddenly, being codependent made complete sense. Being in narcissistic relationships, it was like my brain auto-corrected itself. Oh.
One thing that touched me early on in your work is you're reaching out to people who were afraid to have kids, because of what they had been through. And that was me. And I'm close to 50 now. I never had kids. And I love it that you are working with people to overcome that.
Yeah, because it's not fair. But it's also, to me, it's such a loving thing. It's like a weird experience, but I think it's important to validate people that feel that way. You loved a child somewhere so much that you, some cases, chose not to have children in fear of causing that child pain. I think that is such a beautiful thing, as odd as it sounds, but someone is willing to say, I'm not sure that I'm not going to be able to do this, perhaps, or I'm afraid that somehow this is going to get recreated in a child's experience through me, and it terrifies me, and I just don't want to take that. I think that is a form of love.
Yeah, it is. But the work that you do to help younger people get over that and realize that they would be a totally different parent and do that healing and then just live their lives fully, that is beautiful work. So,
It's great when we have someone come through our program and they get, well, sometimes women come in the program, they're not pregnant, they find themselves pregnant, and they'll say something like, I feel so much better now because now I have the tools. I'm already loving this baby. I'm already making sure I'm not going to pass this on. I mean, it's a beautiful thing because you can overcome it. You can reparent yourself. And this does not have to continue.
yeah, and some of the fears are irrational too. Like, I believed I would be a good parent, but I thought, what if I got sick? What if my back went out? What if my mom was the only person who could help? What if I died and I didn't have support from, my partner's family? Then this kid would be raised by, and I couldn't wrap my head around that possibility.
I think it's fair, especially if you grow up feeling unseen, especially if you grow up feeling alone. It's that this idea of having a child be left behind and alone is very real, right? I have that I have that fear. I'm married and I still have that fear. My husband's like, relax. Like I'm still white knuckling it a little bit. Like, and I'm like, but what if something happens to me? Because I feel like they rely on me so much. So I still have the fear of what if. And I think if you grew up feeling supported and the home was predictable, I think it would be easier to trust. So to me, this distrust and this fear to me makes total sense considering the background.
So, besides meditation, what do you recommend to people healing that deep mother wound? Because it is a deep one for women and for men in different ways.
Absolutely. Well, I think meditation, it's the gateway, because what happens is we're stuck in rumination, and the default mode network is real. It sits behind the eyes. And what we feel in the subconscious realm, we're reacting to consciously or unconsciously. So we're all 95% unconscious 95% of the time. So I might meet someone and not even know I'm seeking that person's validation and fearing abandonment at the same time. So if this person, dislikes me or doesn't call me when they say they're supposed to, I might feel terribly wounded. And that might have nothing to do with them, but because this wound is unresolved, it feels a whole lot more dramatic than it has to be. And we walk around. So it's important that meditation is awesome, but we have to understand the purpose of the meditation is to walk through a door, to open a door into a subconscious mind. And then we have to really tether ourselves to this idea that I'm operating from patterns and programs, and that which is unresolved in me is going to come to the surface. It's going to want to work itself out. So I think journaling prompts are incredibly powerful. Surrounding yourself with other people that understand your pain. Definitely psychotherapy with a qualified therapist is going to help. Knowledge, information. For me, slowing down the mental field and learning to witness what I was witnessing was huge. Like, why did I just say that? Why do I feel that? In my class, I asked people, I said, one of the exercises is that a codependent thought? Or is that a non-codependent thought? Why are you making 200 cupcakes for the kids' class when the teacher asked you for 35? Are you seeking her validation? Do you want to be liked? So it really is learning to observe on such a deep level that you're constantly monitoring yourself. And then when you find an action or an intention that's tied to the mother wound, offer yourself self-compassion, love the inner child, and say, you don't have to do that anymore. You are enough. I am safe right here, right now. Everything that I need, I have. Everything's working out for me. I am self-sufficient. I don't need to acquiesce. I don't need to seek validation. It's developing that type of a mantra.
Why is it that they are able to trigger our egos, that we can, be just walking along and be absolutely fine, but a narcissist is a expert at getting an ego reaction from someone?
Well, we're all human, first of all. We're all human, and if you're human, you have an ego yourself, and you're trying to transcend it. You need healthy narcissism, in the sense where narcissism is only bad if it's on the extreme end of it, where it's all about me and I'm going to step on other people's heads to get where I have to go. But, You have to have some level of healthy narcissism to do what we're doing. This is who I am. This is who you are. This is what I believe in. This is what I'd like to share. But we're not stepping on other people's heads to get our point across, right? We're creating a platform. We hope people participate. We hope that it enriches their life, right? So it's important that we understand that we all have an ego. Now, an ego that is wounded, that has not been dealt with, an ego that is still upset with what other people think about us is going to be easily triggered. That's why healing from codependency, healing from the mother wound, learning how not to be so reactive, allowing other people to have their faulty perception of us, recognizing that it's okay if that no one likes you, or it's okay if people dislike you. You don't like everybody either. That's okay. Namaste, walk away. So we're going to have to really be mindful. And I think the more we stop during the day and just slow down and remember that we're more spirit than body, more spirit than mind, and we're more spirit than ego. And this way, if someone comes into our experience, our natural reaction, our natural unconscious reaction is to react. We all have natural ego defense mechanisms. Narcissists are masters at them. They're ninjas. They're ninjas. They're ninjas. Their words are like swords. Your vulnerabilities are what they need to flush out. They need to know, oh, you're worried about the size of your nose? Oh, you're worried about having a flat butt? Oh, you're worried about something else, or someone else said something about the way that you walk or the way that you smell, whatever it is that you have shared with a narcissist. They're going to exploit that to get a reaction out of you, because you leaving them is their trigger.
I have an understanding that all of this is on a spectrum, that unhealthy narcissism is on a spectrum. So one person can come across something in the dating world or in the work environment, and, it may not be that dramatic, but it could be unhealthy narcissism. So, but then there are malignant narcissists who, when you encounter one of those, there's just something really different about the energy. There's something that you understand this person, and this sounds morbid, but not saying that they're actually murderers, but they would really rather kill you than admit to being wrong. Like they would rather see you dead than admit that they have any fault. And that's like a really weird awareness when you're empathetic and understanding enough to finally get it. And that's usually where no contact goes with parents and no contact goes in a relationship, when you realize that moment. So how do you navigate the spectrum, though, where people are not that bad, like that dark, but they're just somewhere on that spectrum? What do you say to people?
I think it's situational. So if I'm at work and, I have a narcissistic coworker that monopolizes the conversation, or who does less work than everybody else, but claims the work as her own, right? Now, I could become really irritated by this person, especially if I focus on it, but I can't control it. But if I focus on my own work and I put my best foot forward, right? And I allow her to create her own karma. I whistle while I work. I just focus on myself. And she's a gnat. Okay. She's going to get the vibe, like, don't mess with me. Like, I'm not interested, right? You want to make sure you don't give her too much of your time, because she'll monopolize it. She'll want to pull you in, talk about that person over there, or get you to do her work. So you have to be aware of how you feel around certain energies. If you feel like constricted, we're all, in my opinion, we're all hooked up to the one universal mind. Every truth is registered. So when someone's talking to me and I see something that I'm like, oh, I'm hooked up to the universal mind. I don't know why I don't trust that person. I just don't. But I trust that I don't. It might be something that I need to work out myself, that I see in this person that bothers me about myself. That could be. But I'm going to be open enough to see it.
I do something like this. I cross my arms. I do that in the presence of something that chills me. And early on in my near-death experience, I was stalked, and it's lasted for decades. And that is, an awareness that I do like to put out there in the world, that there are some people on that level of narcissism that if they can't, they're so fragile that if they can't have something, they're going to create harm in that person's life in any way that they can. And that's a weird level of narcissism, but it exists.
we all want to believe that we're safe. It's very debilitating and frightening for us to think that these types of people exist. It bothers us to think that these people are packing our groceries at the grocery store, driving around in the car, that they literally are walking amongst us. It's very destabilizing to some people. And that's why I think awareness is huge.
This is important for people, this information. I'm glad you're saying it, because I don't know how to say it to people sometimes, but there is this knowing that, especially a lot of my followers are in their late 30s to 50s, 60s. And so we're dealing with a divorced population, and that is, do you think that there's more narcissists out there, in that population?
I think it's in line with social media. But over the past 20 years, narcissism seems to be on the rise. And these children or young adults are confusing self-confidence with arrogance, and self-esteem with entitlement, and the desire for power with, self-esteem. No. And so there are more narcissists being created. There are more narcissists in the world today. However, I do think that there are more narcissists who are willing to target deliberately. You bump into, I've dated men who are on the narcissistic spectrum. They didn't know they were narcissists. They were just like real jerks, like narcissistic jerks, right? But they weren't intentionally. They didn't go out into the dating pool looking for a prey, looking for someone. But then the last person I dated actually was that guy. And that brought me to my knees.
And that's frightening. So explain to me why a narcissist would target someone who has survived abuse and is coming out talking about it and they're healing. But there are some narcissists who detect oh, this person has been abused, I'll target her.
I think that anytime it's intentional, we're talking about another realm, like psychopathy, like someone who's psychopathic, they know what they're doing, and they have an agenda. The person that I'm talking about I hadn't written my book yet, but I was a personal trainer. I had written articles online, so I was into health and wellness. I own my own home. I talked about my story about reinventing myself, creating another business. So he knew there was trauma there with my family, my parents. And so he knew, and he created an entire story that was similar to mine. And we had a very short relationship, but Westchester County detectives came to my house and explained that I had been targeted by this person. He had targeted 7 or 8 other women, all professional women. And his agenda was to steal their house. Again, trying to be the hero of my own story, I asked myself, well, what did I learn? And what I learned was I ignored red flags, because my intuition on a number of occasions said, this doesn't feel right. There was a car ride where he said to his friend, this would be a good place to bury her body. About me. Wow. And I went, and this is it. Your mind doesn't want to believe that you heard that. It's too painful to think I'm in a car with someone who has these types of thoughts, right? It's too painful. I would much rather believe in the cognitive bias that I have, that he helped create for 6 months. So cognitive bias happens. You meet a narcissist who butters you up, love bombs you. You create a cognitive bias. This person's awesome. You believe their story. So when a red flag shows up, you have cognitive dissonance. So we have to empower people to say, why did you say that? But that starts with, how do you feel? Which is a boundary, which is, I'm not afraid to be abandoned by you.
So everything is about getting your own power back, because a lot of times it's been taken from you as a kid. I joke that I felt drained by the time I was 18, that here I was supposed to take on the world, enter college, and then I was like, oh, I have nothing in the tank. Much of life has been a regaining of power, of just taking it back. And it sounds like your courses do this, your meditations do this. What are your best tips? We'll end on this, for just regaining all that power that's been leaked.
The good news is that we have the potential to be our own light source, our own lighthouse, right? But not through the eyes of the wounded inner child. It has to be through higher consciousness. It has to be through an awakening. It has to be through, wait a minute, I know that I'm enough. That's actually a fact. And what steps can I hold on to in the now to reinforce this over? Oh, there's a negative thought. Well, that's not even true. I am enough. Or, oh, I felt that person was mean to me and I'm seeking their validation. Well, I don't want to seek the validation of an evil person. So let me let this relationship go. You know what? I'm not available Friday. You know what? I'm going to send a big fight. I'm just going to start pulling away. So I think it's important that we recognize that we can fill ourselves up, but we can't do it from the place of the wounded inner child. That's like a 3-year-old trying to empower a 3-year-old. You can't do it. You have to understand that you have a higher self. So awakening your consciousness, right, will help you do that. So one of the tools I can offer is I think it's one of the most powerful I offer. It's called the 1, 2, 3 process. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about it. So we get stuck. We get stuck in feeling. We don't know how to process it. We're triggered. The amygdala is triggered, and we need the prefrontal lobe to get turned on, right? Because when you're triggered, the timekeeper of the brain shuts off. Our access to the prefrontal lobe, which is logic and reason, gets shut off. We're literally 3 years old again, or 4 years old again. The body actually responds. Oh, I remember what this felt like. And in that moment, if we're not careful, we can get stuck in an earlier trauma. And we can't speak, or we start feeling like we're 3. We feel completely powerless. We have the CPTSD response. It's natural. But we have to remember that if we get stuck in the emotion, it's going to be very, very difficult to override and get to the next step. So I created the 1, 2, 3 process. So the first step, whenever you feel something, remember it's awareness. We're after, oh, I feel something. Feel it. Accept it. Number 1, accept it. If you're angry, accept it. If you're jealous, accept it. If you're envious, accept it. If you feel guilty, accept it. If you feel shame, just for a moment, accept it. Don't layer. I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off. No. I'm depressed. I'm sad. No, just be sad. I'm angry. I'm angry. Just be angry, right? Don't layer. And you feel, so you accept how you feel. The second step is connect to your body. How do you know that you're angry? How do you know? For me, I know that I'm off center because I feel like something just punched me in the chest. Then I feel like a constriction. I'm on high alert. I've been taken out of the flow. So that's when my body says, uh-oh, pay attention, because I am on a quantum level hooked up to the universal mind. And I'm being sent at, laser time, I'm being sent information that my conscious mind doesn't understand yet. So I'm understanding something's wrong. The third step is to decide what you're going to do about how you feel. This is where we turn the brain back on. We turn the prefrontal lobe back on. We give ourselves permission to think about the way that we feel. So I need to make a decision here because this is an action-based world. I'm a physical being. I have fingers, I have a mouth, I have toes. I'm supposed to be doing something, right? Most of the time we just freeze and we do what we've always done. No. The third step is decide what you're going to do about how you feel. So you ask yourself, what about this can I control? What about this can't I control? And ultimately, how do I want to feel? So whatever decision I make about how I feel has to be in alignment with how I want to feel on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And to end, I want you to just tell people about what you do in your classes and workshops if they want to sign up. I'd love to hear more.
I created a business that I wish that I had when I was coming out of codependency and narcissistic abuse. So I have the 12-week breakthrough coaching program, and that's a program that you can work live with me and my coaches. I have 5 live coaches. You can actually work with me inside the program and on Facebook for 12 weeks. And that's a video, a journaling prompt, meditation, homework assignments, and a live stream every week with me that I answer questions. And then you can also purchase it on demand for half off the original price. And this really helps you break through the subconscious patterns and reprogram your mind and do basically what we just said, become a hero in your own life. Then I have a warrior membership. That's a monthly membership. I also offer live streams there. I have a boundary building workbook that people can go purchase. I have a 12-part advanced audio codependency series, which is helping people. So yeah, just go to my website.
And one thing you've said, or that was said on your website, that I really like is we need each other. We understand each other when we've been through this. There's this peace that happens the same way, you know, when near-death experiencers find this understanding in someone. Like, we need community.
It's so powerful. Research proves it. Research proves that people who have a support system where they go and they feel like I can just be myself, right? It enhances the healing experience. It helps you feel seen. It helps you hit those psychological milestones. And you suddenly feel like you have a big sister or a big brother that you never had, or an aunt or an uncle who's like, yeah, I've been there. You know, this is what I did then. You suddenly feel supported. You know, we're very much social creatures, you know, and our brains are built for socialization. And when we live in fear, we isolate and we don't do well. We get depressed. We feel disempowered. We feel hopeless. So we've come to evolve, right? But when you don't trust, you devolve, you stay small. And so when you're in a community, especially a community that's run well, a community where there is no tolerance for like unnecessary conflict, there is complete acceptance of whatever a member has to share, right? That's a safe zone, right? Especially if you got to be careful. Some communities aren't run like that. But I have 8 moderators in my large Facebook group, and we meet regularly, and we have zero tolerance. And it's not easy to do. We have 16,000 plus community members. It's not so easy to do because sometimes we get the who's attacking, and we have no tolerance for it, you know. So, but if you can be part of a community where you feel supported, and the people running the group have been there, and they can help you through. It's proven, science has proven that helped your recovery. And then you get to help someone.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And I'll, of course, provide the links below to anyone who is looking at a snippet or the whole thing. But thank you so much, Lisa, for the work you do and for talking to me today. It meant the world to me. It's a lot of help.
Sharing your experiences with other people, you know, and creating a mission-based business, and hopefully we're inspiring other people to do the same.
Yes, amen. Well, have a great day.